What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. Today we have on a few guests. Today we got Andrew from Polar Reef. We got Stefan from Yorkshire Reefer, right?
The Yorkshire Reefer. There's a few. The
The
Yorkshire
the,
Reefer.
the one and only, and Nick, Aquarium Cabinet Solutions. How are you guys doing today?
Hi, everybody. Yeah,
Hiya.
all good. Thanks, Deb.
Awesome. Good to have you guys on today. How you doing, Stefan?
Yeah, good. Thank you. First live stream actually for me since I've come on the socials, and it's 12 a.m. in the UK. So
Appreciate the dedication to the cause.
so,
Yeah.
but we're here.
Yeah. How about yourself, Andrew? How's things?
There are always things going on, and we're in the middle of tons of capital projects that seem like they are finally coming together.
Sounds promising. Big panel tonight. Yes, we do, Phil. So tonight we're digging in. We figure we'd dig into some ozone, a bit of GFO, some of the effects on trace elements, and whatever other rabbit holes we end up down as usual. But sound is low on the guests. Let me turn them up a bit. Okay, guys, talk for a sec.
Check.
Testing 1, 2.
Perfect. All right,
Check,
you guys.
check.
All right, we should be good now. If there's any other things, let me know. So I guess first question with ozone. I know a few of us are fans here, but Andrew, are you using ozone on your big systems?
Yes, and we've gone through a few different iterations. Frankly, the one we're using now is a Ozotech. We have two separate units of 1.7 grams each, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And with this relatively new oxygen concentrator that we are running instead of beads, we find that we only need to turn on one half of the machine.
Yep.
And I would say over time, over the last few months, the trend we've been trending our ORP down a little bit from keeping it so high. We see some differences in some of the things that you're talking about tonight, as well as fish aggression,
Oh,
by
interesting.
keeping it up very high.
Huh. Interesting on fish aggression. So just for, I guess, I've never heard of the oxygen concentrator aspect until tonight. I know the beads are normally to dry the air. That's kind of the most common one. So does the oxygen, same thing? You're just injecting pure air basically to make sure there's no
that's
moisture in it? Okay.
That's it.
No. And I guess on your big system too, you need it to be as efficient as possible for that water volume.
Yeah, the only, it worked so well when we had them both on, both halves on with the oxygen concentrator, that literally I would go over and above my set point like every 5 minutes. Like, it'd be like 2 more high, and then I would overshoot by 30, and then so using half is actually what we're doing
Nice.
right now. And the only time I feel like I need to turn the other half on is after a big phyto, Benepet feed, and I got company coming over, like that.
Need the extra clarity to show it off. Yeah. That's fair. Now, do you use it on your smaller systems as well, or just on the big one?
Nope, just on the big one.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, Nick, I know you're a fan of ozone. Are you running on your tanks?
I am. I'm running on my coral bays right now. So yeah, you know me. I'm a big fan of ozone. You know what, Dev? I was just thinking, when you go into the local fish store, imagine bumping into Andrew in your local fish store, and you're like, you're there with your 9-foot or your 10-foot tank, and you're like, hey, how you doing? How long you been reefing, and what sort of system you got? And then Andrew pulls out his phone and shows pictures. And you're like, I can't compete with that, right? He's like the worst person to meet in the local.
The truth
fish
of the
store.
matter is, the last few fish stores I'm in, everybody knows already.
Right.
Yeah, no more
Yeah.
surprising it. Yeah.
Not a surprise
Andrew's
guess.
numbers are just huge. Like, I was listening to the live stream you did the other day, and you were talking about how much carbon you go through and the water changes and so on. And those numbers are just like you know, wow, it's like
Just
crazy amounts of
numbers and man
carbon and
hours
Yeah. So actually, this is a good question.
and dollars.
Do you still use much carbon on top of ozone, or have you reduced that since ozone? Because I know, like, historically, like, I rarely ever bother carbon anymore because ozone more or less does the job that I need to that carbon did.
Yeah. Are you afraid of bromide radical poisoning or residual ozone in the tank? I'm a little bit. So we are running a few bags passively in the sump, and and one bucket of 5-gallon bucket in a reactor run very slowly.
Okay, that's fair. Personally, I don't worry about it too much, but I also run a much lower concentration, and it has such a short half life that I run it in the middle of the night when no one's around. So I personally never worry about it. But again, that's the method I take on it. Now, Stefan, you don't run ozone yet, but I have a feeling that you will by the end of this live stream.
We're going to convert him.
I don't know. I've always found when I'm filming and doing content, I've got really nice clarity. So I kind of thought, well, I'm all right for now. And then we spoke last week or earlier this week about the smell.
Yep.
And the other half has recently mentioned the smell. So
you got to vent it outside.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's we took the kids in when the school holidays to the deep, and I just came across they've got a massive ozone generator there or whatever. So I left and I was going, it's everywhere now. Ozone's everywhere. Yeah. It's a calling, if you like.
Yeah, it's true.
At first I thought we were going to use it only because you have to look through 17 feet of water, and our mechanical filters are really, it's on a loop, and the one on the stump's on a loop, and it's not direct mechanical on the main system, believe it or not. So it's why I don't use it on the smaller systems, but on the 2500, which is will be ready shortly, which is, I don't know, it's only 6 feet. We're going to use it anyway because I like it.
I mean, I would, any tank bigger than 4 feet, I would run it. Shelly, quick shout out. Thank you for the super chat. Welcome. Don't forget to that like button.
Shelly.
Yeah, Shelly's awesome. Much appreciated. So, Stefan, I know yesterday or whatever, we were talking about the smell of it, and I originally did ozone for water clarity. When you're looking down, 6+ feet of water, you can definitely notice a massive difference when running ozone and not running ozone. But the side benefit too is it breaks down those organics that cause, that oceany smell from your tank. And I know back in the day, the wife would, complain the tank smells or something. And then I'd be like, oh, time to change the carbon. But now hasn't happened in years. So that's like another massive benefit.
And that only just happened recently. And I thought, maybe it's because we've got another tank.
Yeah.
But actually, I think that it's just because we've got another tank, we've got more water, we've got more organics. So but the tanks, the clarity wise, I'm not looking at using it for the clarity. I've got that, and I think that's, as Andrew said and you said, I don't have that depth when I'm doing the content. It's just how much, 1 or 2 foot. That's it for the camera. So it's not a big deal. But there are other benefits I'm seeing people talk about that I'm very interested in. So. I'm very much the student here on the ozone.
Another big one. Everyone talks about the clarity. That's obviously the main use. But another good side bend as well is breaking down all the coral toxins. So if you have a mixed reef, different corals, they release stuff into the water that can inhibit growth of other corals. Those toxins. So breaking that down, and essentially like carbon will absorb it. This will break it down, and it prevents a lot more issues from that front as well. So there actually is a lot of other benefits aside from just straight up clarity.
I will tell you, we run one skimmer with the ozone. We don't split it, and one skimmer without it. And there is a significant difference in the foam and the foam amount and the consistency of the foam between the two skimmers.
So what's the big effect that you notice, like on the ozone one versus not? Because I hear some people say it affects it. I haven't noticed a massive difference on just my single one, but having side by side's a really cool way to compare it.
When the ozone's on, I think there's more foam and more production on the ozone side. And it almost could shut the other one down.
Oh, really? Wow. That's crazy.
Really?
I think the other thing though on Andrews, you've got the like commercial skimmers, haven't you? Like the really big skimmers. So the difference that Andrew will see versus like, you know, a regular hobbyist might be slightly different. So on the smaller skimmers, they can collapse the bubble stack. Where on the commercial ones that Andrew will be running, it builds it and it makes it quite strong on the skim mate, right? So
we run
the
one that does not run ozone runs too wet unless I keep it lower than the other one.
Huh.
Yeah.
Crazy. Do you run it 24/7 or just certain times?
No, 24/7.
Yeah.
24/7 on ORP meter on the computer, and 3 additional portable units monitoring the computer.
Okay. Lots
And as soon as I see 20, 25 millivolts of difference, first thing I do is I calibrate the cheaper pinpoint ones, and that's usually what happens. They drift way more than the industrial ORP probes. And when they're really different, I try to split the difference, and I'll lower the ORP because I'm not sure what it is. I'd rather be low than high.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you know, the calibrating on the computer one takes it needs a water, like it takes a water change. It's in one of the pipes. It's not something that you just go do.
Well, that's fair. On yours, so you run your Ozone 24/7. Actually, what do you use for industrial probes? I'm curious about this now. What am I missing out on?
They are GF Signet.
Excellent. Polo Reef.
You can
Let's
tell,
hit the like
you
button.
can tell Dev is such like a gear junkie, right? What gear have you got, Andrew?
It's like, wait a minute, I don't have industrial probes.
They're built like tanks. And by the way, they don't drift that much. Like, even when I think they drifted, these are actually 2 points. I think it was a 200 something millivolt and a 600 millivolt.
Yep.
And I asked how much they were off by. And this is like, I'm convinced it's off. It was off by 6 and 10, like not big numbers.
Okay, that's fair. Not enough to worry about. Now, in your mind, what is your high point for ORP? What's too high where you don't want to go over it?
I guess it depends on the distance from your skimmer to your display tank. But like, I see no reason to run it out of the skimmer at its max, whatever, at 400 or over. I don't see any reason for it.
Yeah.
Because by the time it gets into my display, maybe it's only 30 or 40 lower than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard 400 was the sweet spot.
Yeah, that's. I think mine's at like 410 to shut it off if it ever hits that high.
Yeah.
But
I think my set point is like 360 right now.
Yeah.
Which is keeping my display roughly at 330.
Now Ozone, a lot of people do worry about it. It does have a very short half-life, which is ballpark, I believe Randy would say is around half an hour or so by the time it kind of dissipates. So a lot of people that do worry about it too. Like, I personally run in the middle of the night when no one's around the tank, if that is a concern of yours. Some people put carbon on the skimmer to kind of absorb any residual. But again, if you just
some people drill holes in their house to vent it out.
Yeah. Is that your strategy?
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the sulfur reactor too.
Yep. I ran a 1/2-inch airline through my wall up into the attic just to give fresh air to my skimmer. So I feel you. How about you, Nick? What's your ORP set points at?
I don't, because I do the system like, how long have you been running now? About 6 years, I think.
Yeah,
7 years.
Yeah, about that probably.
So when we were talking about it back then, I just run it like a few hours through the night, and that's it. So I just run it for a little bit of clarity, a little bit of organic, like blasting through the night, and then I'm bubble scrubbing as well. So I'm just using it just to get rid of some organics, but I'm not using it for pathogen, to try and kill off pathogens and things like that. So it's purely just water clarity. So with the small amount that I'm dosing, I don't run an ARP meter. It's never going to get to those sort of levels with the way I'm running.
How many of you guys that are running Ozone are also running a UV?
So I don't, Andrew. Yeah, I don't run UV. So
Kevin?
Just Ozone.
I have one plumbed in, but it's been turned off for quite a while. Yeah, I don't really use the UV for pathogens per se, but I used to try and use it for, again, water clarity, clean the glass less was kind of my thing. But with the Ozone, I tried to like double hitter, see if I'd never have to clean my glass, but unfortunately it's still a necessary evil.
I mean, the other interesting thing with the Ozone, and I know Andrew's doing some like research and some experimentation on head and lateral line erosion and things like that. And one of the antidotal things with Ozone is that it'll actually act as like not a sterilizer as such, but an antibacterial for fish if they've got bacterial issues and things like that.
Definitely less bacterial infection.
That's antidotal.
Definitely less.
From Ozone.
So no one's really quantified it or put numbers or figures on it. But that's one of the benefits that people have noticed.
Andrew's got lots
as well.
You've got lots of healthy tongues, Ross.
Yeah.
Definitely less bacterial infections. But, there's plenty of people that won't use Ozone unless it's run over carbon because of the
risk.
Residual ozone. And I've seen that carbon grind up and actually cause head and lateral line disease.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's a good
I
point.
know a lot of the commercial guys that fish are in and out, they're just cranking it out with ozone. They don't even bother with activated carbon.
Yeah. So Than, Tidal Gardens, I'm using UV and ozone together. The UV helps break down the residual ozone. It's actually a good point too. Probably speed up that.
I think I agree with that. And if you can use the UV as a pathogen strong enough, then you could sort of tinker with your ozone just for clarity.
Yep. No, that's a good way to do it. I know like on Humblefish's forums, he had some posts about using hydrogen peroxide essentially as a bit of a bath for a fish or as a treatment, which is essentially, similar-ish to ozone. So it kind of does make sense for the antibacterial side of it.
Do you know what happens to ORP when you put hydrogen peroxide into a tank? Just so it's going to be the opposite what you think. So just giving you a hint.
Yeah, you think it would go up, but it goes down.
It crashes.
Yeah.
And then the ozone goes on, and by the time it gets back up, it's time for a new peroxide dose. And so one of the issues Bobby asked me, do you think it would be smart to leave the ozone on if you're peroxide dosing and your UV is on? And I don't think we know the answer. I will tell you that there was some angry fish. I had two friendly fish that they just killed each other.
Really?
Wow.
It's just a lot of oxidation.
Yeah. I've been doing that, ironically, speaking of, the little nano in my tank just to kill off some algae inside, just spot treating with peroxide. And it absolutely works. That's probably be my next video on it. But it's interesting that the fish reacted like that.
It's why everybody's so angry in Vegas when they're at the blackjack table.
Pumping it in.
Yeah. I know, eh? So, one of the other things that we were kind of partially diving into was, trace elements. And I know GFO, I know you're playing with that and how it affects trace elements. But on a initial thing, do you think that ozone has any effect on trace elements at all? Like, I know it breaks down organics. I wouldn't really think it would, but any thoughts on if it affects it?
It does. But have you seen the charts that show how much GFO absorbs?
Probably a lot.
Like GFO is like the worst offender.
Yeah.
After I saw the charts, I almost wanted to double dose trace elements like the first few days of a GFO change.
Yeah.
That's the biggest. That's a big sink. I think ozone, the big effect is on iron.
Yeah. Oh, that can make sense.
That's where I see it.
Yeah. Yeah. So GFO is a good one. I used to use it a lot. I haven't in ages, but I used to be very heavy into it. And yeah, like you could just be throwing away your money on trace elements because it's sucking them all up as fast as you're dosing them.
And then the issue is you send ICPs in, and are you sending them in when the GFO is fresh or the GFO is almost exhausted? And we've seen differences of the two.
Yeah.
Just on the ICP test.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's like, I know some hobbyists, I mean, I'm guessing, Andrew, you probably run GFO and like carbon pretty much constantly, right? Because the size of the system. Whereas I only use GFO for, 1 week, once a month. And it's just to shave off the drift in the phosphate. That's all.
Almost medicinal.
But on a much smaller system, you can manage your organics. You can manage, the phosphate from the organics a lot easier.
Yeah, we have a few systems that don't use it, but you guys don't have Yeltsin feeding your fish
with a shovel.
Basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I've just accepted higher phosphates now. I used to, fight her, get her back down to that like 0.06 level. And now it's like 0.12, 0.15. I'm like, man, it's fine.
It really is.
It is. Rather than constantly feeding reactors.
I don't see a difference between 0.06 and 0.1 in the tank at all. But I can't see through all that water. Anyway, to look at the coral that good.
Need more ozone.
Right.
Yeah.
Now we have other tanks connected, so I can see. And boy, I mean, Rich Ross is running like 1.2 phosphates.
Yeah.
And growing corals and spawning corals. Somebody, whoever invented that, the more phosphate you have, the less coral skeleton will grow. That has to probably be reinvented a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the mentality is changing. It used to be super low. Now I think people are accepting, more of a moderate level. Like I had an acro spawn in my tank a week or two ago, and I mean, so obviously they're happy.
I heard that. Yeah. Congrats.
Thanks. Yeah, it was really cool.
Congrats. You're a coral granddaddy, huh?
I know. Thousands of little babies that are probably dried up in my filter roller now, but I turned off the flow for a bit just in case some would settle, but who knows, probably not. But I don't know, it was cool. So obviously, higher nutrients, not that big of a deal, right? They're happy enough to spawn, can't be that bad.
I think it was out of desperation, Dev. That's what it was. Survival instinct.
Survival. Yeah. It was, we're going to die, ozone. Well, if my curls don't turn white in the next month, we'll be safe. Yeah, it's all over. Joe76, can ozone be dangerous to the tank environment? Most people use a skimmer as an ozone reactor. You do need to make sure it is rated as ozone safe skimmer. There's 2 types of acrylic. One of them will deteriorate with ozone. The other one can handle it. Not a big deal. So that's one of the bigger things. Again, it's not the best thing for you to be breathing in, but realistically,
I also recommend Devin an air alarm near the unit that flashes.
Yeah, you can buy the CO2 alarms, and there's your safety buffer. Very common for people to put carbon on top of their skimmer, so any stuff that comes out of it will be absorbed. My strategy is, again, just run a very low amount because it breaks down very quickly, and run it in the middle of the night when no one's around the tank anyways. So a couple different thoughts on it.
We're scaring Steph now. Look at his face. He's like...
I was just going to ask you, the carbon on the skimmer dry?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, my original one, I made like a little ring that went on the lid, or you can just buy little pads that are carbon and just pop it on top, and then it just absorb any residual.
I'm not in Andrew's position where I can just drill through the house just yet.
What if I told you that was our most viral video we've ever had? Jonathan, who is not a mason, went up in an unsafe manner without glasses, holding a drill bit the size of 3 Frisbees.
Yeah.
We have 36 million views on how unsafe it was by every do-it-yourself, home doer mason. I can't believe it. I've never did a video bigger than that.
And
the whole thing was a
He
joke.
was just posing for the picture, right? He wasn't actually drilling. Who was just posing?
No, he was just up there for a picture, right?
Yeah.
Oh, really? I'll come all in and do
that's
the
awesome.
actual video then.
Awesome. Okay, Aaron, do you dry the air intake for ozone, or is that not necessary? If your air is too humid, it can make, I believe it's carbonic acid inside of it. So if you live in a very humid area, it is wise to dry it. If you're not
nitric acid.
Thank you, nitric acid. That's the word I was looking for. Nitric acid. So if you have dry air, it's not going to build up inside. Now, if it does form inside, you could just manually flush it out once in a while and clear it out. So it kind of depends. Now, if you have humid air, it's also not as efficient. So if you have a smaller system, you probably do not care if it's not as efficient because you got tons of headroom. Like I'm running mine 2 out of 10 or 3 out of 10, whatever. So I don't care if it's not as efficient. But if you're on a very big system,
do you know what those increments mean, Devin? Do you know exactly? Do you know how many ppms are going in? Or
I do not. No, I don't. I kind of just went the mythology of finding just enough, like start at lower, then go a little bit higher. So mine's a 200 milligram unit. So, in theory, 30% of that. But
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So on a smaller system, you probably aren't too worried if it's not fully efficient. On a larger system, you might want to be more efficient. So it is wise to dry the air, especially if you're in a more humid environment.
The other thing as well, Deb, is one of the things I do on a home size system is when you've got the inlet and the outlet on the airline. Another little tip as well, if you get one of those, the tropical bubblers, like the blue glass ones, and if you put that on the inlet line going in, it just stops dust and stuff collecting on the plate. So that's a bit of a dust filter.
Yeah.
If I lived in a high humid place, I would probably. We've had more problems with the beads and the exchange of when one was ready versus the other. Because one's baking while and one doesn't bake good enough, and it's whatever happens in these boxes. To me, that would be a limiting factor if I didn't want to do the oxygen concentrator. Beads are PIA.
Yeah, I gave up on them. It got old fast drying those beads every week or two. I was like, no.
Right.
So, okay, another caveat here. If you're running ozone inside of your tank stand or somewhere and you have an open sump, it's going to be humid. I have mine on the floor below and like the laundry area sucking. So it's pulling air far away from my tank, which makes the air a lot drier. So keep that in mind where you're sucking your air from, feeding it makes a big difference.
I think I'm on top of the humidity issue first. I've got 3 tanks in one room.
Yep. You should see my 7-foot tank beside me in my tiny office. It's super humid here.
I think they want the relative humidity. You can buy the relative humidity thing off of Amazon that tells you the temperature and the barometer and where the moon is or whatever, horoscopes. Okay?
Everything. Life story, future.
And one of the calcs is the room dryness, right? And because of our system, the Dectron system, which is basically a dehumidification system for Olympic-sized pools, I have never seen a number below 40. above 40 relative humidity. So I know it can get bad though. Gets in the 60s and 70s, ozone doesn't even work.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I think that's really important that we've said that, because I genuinely need to look at the humidity side of things before I even look at the ozone now.
Yeah.
Because
right, but if you get the beads, it takes care of the humidity supposedly.
Yeah.
It does.
I'm not
you just
confident
need
in the beads from what you guys have just
okay.
said.
So the beads are like decadent gel, like those little things that absorb moisture. You fill up a reactor, but the problem is, they'll be burnt out in a week or two, and then you got to pop them in the oven and recharge them. You can buy dryers that are basically a tiny oven that costs as much as a giant oven, and it basically just dries, and they'll alternate which ones are drying. I mean, that's
the one to get if you're you just. When one exhausts, it automatically changes.
Yeah.
And it cooks the other one, and then there could be one exchange or two exchanges a day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's like another water change.
I mean, the other thing you can use as well as the beads is for what your size of aquarium stuff is like pads as well.
Is what? Sorry.
So just like a pad, an absorbent pad. As well as the beads in a small system. It's like when you put in, like Dev was talking about putting the carbon on top of the skimmer lid. It's kind of like a good idea to put a pad and then the carbon on top. So that Andrew was saying that the carbon isn't absorbing directly all the moisture. The pad, like an absorbent pad is going to take most of that moisture out before it hits the carbon. So it'll make it last a lot longer.
Yeah.
My first choice is venting out.
Yeah.
But let me just state that.
Yeah, that's fair. Do same thing too for people with high humidity. Air exchanger in your house can make a big difference too. Just bring in fresh air. It's going to boost your pH, less CO2 in the house. Can sell it to your family. It's healthier for them. Also better for the tank. It's a nice little bonus.
I mean, if I was going to do a big system, I would still go with these little.
If you were going to.
But I'm just saying, let's say it's 2,500.
Wait.
I'm probably gonna go with an oxygen concentrator, probably a smaller one. I'm just so impressed with these little RT2, they're like little robot units, and you set and forget, and you just check the little silver ball. That's all.
So where does one acquire an oxygen concentrator? Is it just like a normal thing?
I want to look at.
You can get them at
Oh, they're CPAP machines.
But Ozotech sells them to you.
Are they?
Good to know. Yes, a couple people in the chat were asking where does one get one.
Yeah.
I googled oxygen concentrator and CPAP machines as the first thing come up. So apparently, if you have one of those, you might be able to utilize it for your tank.
Yeah.
I know. Okay, so I got to say that one. You're like, if I was to do a big system, I was like, so the one you have now is not big. One day, if you do a big one.
How many systems are running off your system, Andrew? Now.
How many tanks are attached?
Yeah.
3 other ones, plus we do water changes in all our coral vats from here.
Right.
So essentially, this is the mama, and there ain't no daddy.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, that's funny. Dan, my home assistant heard the live stream and did a Google search for oxygen concentrators. He's gonna get nothing but ads for it now, Than.
I can't tell you how they've come such a far way. We used to run them in my old house in prior marriage, and it would like literally sound like this. Like every 5 seconds, it'd be like a crazy air blow. These new ones are just dead silent.
Silent, nice.
Wow.
So, on the ozone side, another interesting thing: public aquariums, like large systems, I've seen them as well, where they'll basically take some of their water, they'll treat it with copious amounts of ozone, essentially like sterilize and kill everything in it, and then do a water change back to the system with it. And I've seen some places do, certain things like that. So in theory, it does break down some of the nitrates and some of the other stuff in a system. That's probably related. But I thought it was kind of an interesting concept of, running tons of ozone and then doing a water change back in your own system with it.
I can tell you that the old property, the Atlantis in the Bahamas,
Mm-hmm.
the system was that they built a canal where the ocean goes into the bottom of the hotel,
Yeah.
below the lobby, and they had mesh grills and ozone units, and that's it. And then the water went back to the ocean, and it was actually an open system, but they nuked the water coming in with ozone first.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Wow.
If I lived on the ocean, I'd probably do it.
Yeah. Not a bad idea, right?
I know, right? It's a great way to go. Upstream detail. Will ozone help with nitrate levels? In theory, it does. I don't have full details on it, but I've heard it multiple times. Don't know how much, but in theory, it does have an effect on it. But I have no scientific data. Yeah, I have no scientific data about all that, but I've read that multiple times. So
I would think that it might accelerate the nitrite to nitrate reaction, and you might get more nitrate, but you're also getting less organics and less ammonia to begin with. So, I don't know how the net of that come out.
It'd probably be a better way of reducing nitrates than ozone.
Yeah, I think the second half of that's more likely, where it's probably just breaking down all the organics before they necessarily make it to the nitrate stage. That's my theory.
I think it is. I mean, the thing with ozone, you're doing the opposite, almost like the direct opposite to a flocculant, aren't you? Where a flocculant is binding and then feeding the corals all being taken out, where the ozone is blowing apart. And then it's making like a fine dust out the organics that is getting picked up by a skimmer a lot more efficiently. So I can see that it's, to some extent, it's going to interrupt that decomposition cycle, ammonia to nitrate, by just being able to remove more of it, potentially.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. All right.
I'm sure chemists might give you a different. I don't know. I'm not sure what they would give you.
I don't know. I'll find one and we'll ask them. I'm curious now.
Because in theory, the oxidation of your trite might go to trade faster, or it might just make the nitrite disappear. I'm not sure.
That's fair. Okay. So we also touched on trace elements. Do all of you guys do trace elements in your tanks?
Yeah.
Do you, Stefan?
I'm dosing Modern Reef at the minute, which is kind of everything in one. But then I'm not keeping much high demanding coral at the minute. So we're doing a new build which is ready to go, and we're going to be looking at some SBS colonies and more of the tougher corals to keep. So we'll definitely be looking at. I think I've got an ICP test ready to go as soon as that tank's up and running. So that's going to be a little bit of a project for me to really, because I've kind of just focused on the fish and the softies and really enjoyed that side of it. But we've just cycled this tank and we're about to get the other one up and running, and the old tank and stock moved over. So the Modern Reef's been really good so far. I've not really needed to worry about trace elements too much. It kind of does everything. Yep. But I'm interested to know what you guys do. Certainly, Andrew, what do you do on such a large system?
Well, the first thing I would tell people, if they send ICPs in, particularly if it's an OES ICP, I know too many people that got non-detectables and panicked and dosed, and it wasn't that it wasn't there. It's the machine limit, and overdosed,
Wow.
which is why we send one separate one to a mass spec machine and not OES, because it can see deeper into a few different things where a Triton would say, NN. And then you go, oh my God, I got no magnesium, and you dump a whole bottle in or something, and you panic. Iron, you can panic on a lot of things. There are certain things that the mass spec is just significantly better at reading than the OES. The OES for the majors, some of the minors are okay. But if you get a bunch of non-detectables, they have to be just avoided. Just cross them out and wait for the next test, the MS test to come.
I think you're using moonshiners. That's right, isn't it, Andrew? You're on moonshiners.
I'm on moonshiners, but I had to make some adjustments to get a little more higher concentrations because I was going through too many green bottles and giving Andre too much money. No, Andre's a great guy.
Bottle week.
He came up with a great system.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, like I was going through 20 bottles of fluoride, every week or two. It got a little nuts.
Does it give you credit for like recycling all those bottles though?
No.
I can see that. You're just like, yeah, one green bottle for this week.
but it is interesting to hear. I had them both over. We have two videos if you want to watch them. The differences between Claude Schnurmacher from Fauna and the way he reads his ICPs and ICP results. And he has a very successful farm. And he differs, I would say, in absolute levels and even linear relationships to someone like Christoph Denk, who runs Oshimo, which is a mass spec guy, who Andre is Andre's exclusive guy and exclusive machine. So here you have two scientific machines able to give you 80% of the same things, maybe 20% different, and two guys are saying two different things.
So 80% you trust and the other 20 grain of salt. Yeah, I can see that. That's for I guess the regular ICP test too. That's another point that's popped in my head. Is like pick a brand and stick with it. Certain ICP machines may be configured or calibrated differently, and if you're jumping between brand to brand, you might be chasing false numbers. Versus if you stick to one,
you almost have to know your brand's fingerprint.
Yep.
Yeah. It's perspective, isn't it? So even if it is off, you've got that level to monitor with whatever it is you're using.
As long as you're consistently off, right?
I think Fauna reads the molybdenum a little low. So if I'm at 10, I really might be at 12 or 13 on Oshimo. Just those kinds of things. Because if you panic at 10, which is actually normal, but Andre wants you at 15, you may actually be at 15 going to 20.
Yeah.
But I remember panicking when the numbers wasn't exactly as you wanted them to be, and you think, "Oh no, it's the test. It's not the water. It's the test." So then you get another test. Try this one.
I remember speaking to Vince once, who does Triton in the UK, and he was saying, "You know what, Nick? It's really funny because when the test is not what people want it to be, they're always blaming the test and saying, 'Oh, this is wrong. This is wrong.' But when the test comes back what they want it to be, it's Triton's fantastic." If the test isn't what they want to be, the test is wrong. If it's what they want to be, that's great.
Guys, there's a Hawk instrument out called a spectrophotometer, which uses UV, that you probably don't need the fancy RFID one. And so the non-fancy one is like $6,000-$7,000. It's not an ICP, but it could test um, 75% of the parameters effectively.
That's all right.
Wow.
If you want to do it at home and learn how to use UV, which I hear is not easy.
Huh. That's kind of cool. I'll dig into this later.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
So
Check it
interest.
out. It's name of the company's HACK, H-A-C-K, spectrophotometer.
I have that Googled to dig into more later. So
Yeah.
there are some questions in the chat around, is there trace elements of one bottle and multiple bottles? And there's definitely a lot of different opinions on that, on if you can mix them. I know some companies have one bottle, some have two bottles, some are completely all individual elements.
You can't. It just depends on the coral, doesn't it? The size of the colonies you've got. It's hard to say.
Well, yeah. So if you are using everything in, one or two bottles, they're semi-balanced, but your coral uptake isn't the same in every tank, right? So eventually some stuff's going to be too high, could be too low, and you may need to tweak it anyways off of there. I'm doing a bit of a hybrid approach where I have, some on a doser to do kind of like the main level, and then I'll tweak on top of it with individuals based off of ICP.
What do you use for your main level?
So currently I have the Tropic Marin A and K on a doser, and then I have the Reef Moonshiners that I'll tweak on top of that, just so I use less green bottles. So that kind of covers my base. And then
I like that strategy.
Yeah. So your background buffering and then
basically,
and then just adding to, right?
Yeah, because you got to.
Does A and K, does that include iron and iodine, or is that separate?
I believe most of it's in there, but let me double check.
Because
gotta look through the list. But yeah, just because then it kind of covers, your 80% bulk, and then I can mad scientist tweak the individuals on top of that. Because you got to respect that not everything is going to stay balanced, because every tank is different. Corals are going to have different consumption rates of different things depending on what your tank stock with. So it's a good kind of like happy medium, at least I find, between the two.
The one we use, which we've been happy with reasonably, is CChem Trace. CChem Trace, but then you do a separate iron and a separate iodine.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to be running the CChem on this one here. So, and then obviously the modern reef on the other system. So it's two very different things, but I've heard great things about both, and I've used one of them consistently for the last couple of years. So
nice.
Yeah, I would try to get to 50 or 60%, 40% with CChem Trace. I've just one level, and then the next level bump up with the individuals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. You asked about iodine. So iodine is in the A part. What was the other one you asked about?
Iron.
And iron's in the K part. Yeah, so they're both in there. So they're in the different bottles, but yeah. And again, iodine's a tricky one too, because that one is, again, some people is very easy to overdose, and it also doesn't last quite as long. So, I mean, by the time you send your ICP test, that's always a bit of a trickier one for people to test on.
A lot of people that use scrubbers or macroalgae or Cheeto, they will be low in iron, iodine, and barium, and sometimes potassium.
Molybdenum, I find, is low too.
And it's consistent.
Mm-hmm. That's actually a good little side tangent of all the stuff that steals your trace elements, aside from the coral.
Right.
Algae is going to suck it up. Scrubbers, Cheeto, Clerpa, GFO.
Dev, didn't Josh at Clearwater Scrubbers, I'm sure he did something with Chris at Captivate, and Chris
he included a bottle of drops.
Yeah.
Where he thought that a full algae scraper could replace. Yes, he tried that. Mm-hmm. It's one of those only ones of one in a bottle.
Yeah. So, yeah, just on another side tangent, a lot of people I find too that do run refugiums, like it grows like crazy for a few months and then all their growth is stunted. And that's usually because they're out of like iron, molybdenum, and all those types of trace elements the algae suck up.
And
So that's
then,
the thing, though,
and then,
Dev, like,
and then it goes, and then it dies on you and releases bad stuff into the system. So, like, that's another risk with these refugiums.
I have a refugium on my main display. Fortunately, not had any issues. Actually, I found that I have a really immaculate display tank because everything is in the refugium. But how? So I'd be interested to understand what would cause that to suddenly crash and then release. Because it's just been running so well for 2 years.
I don't know what crashes it, but it does happen sometimes, and they have known to release. That's why people do dock tests and make the water yellow, and some people think it cause bacterial infections. I'm just saying it's another side of refugium that besides the suck. And I don't know which suck is worse, the GFO suck or the refugium suck. I know they're both sucking.
Both sucking some trace.
Right. So
that's why they say
it's whatever you want to deal with.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why they say good reefers keep SPS and master reefers keep SPS for refugiums, right?
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. I actually haven't ran a refugium in a while now.
There
The
you
skimmer,
go.
everything else just keeps her balanced and does the job.
There's
Well,
so many decent carbon dosing products on the market that I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it, but like people are carbon dosing their food now, coral food. Oh, I know, Devin, you're gonna do an interview on one of these. Have you seen this new CRC? Take a bunch of probiotics, take a bunch of benefits,
oh yeah. I've heard about it.
Take a bunch of enzymes from Zeovit that we have no idea what they do. Add some coral snow, shake it up, put an air bubbler in, and there are a couple other things I'm missing. I'm some amino acid, whatever. I'm missing some other stuff.
Coral soup and ferment it a bit and smells nasty and dump it in.
Yeah. I then feed
Some
it to the
coral
corals.
snow.
No,
Can't say I've tried it, but I've interestingly heard definitely a handful of people doing that. So,
And it's some of the people are saying that their phosphate levels are coming down from 0.1 to 0.05.
yeah.
And they're feeding daily instead of every 2 or 3 days.
Have you tried it yet?
Nope.
Let me know if you do.
I will.
Yeah.
We need
Still
that
studying
recipe.
the ingredients. I've just got a couple. Everybody's sending me different recipes.
Honestly, it's just like a soup of bacteria and coral food and aminos, and let it sit for get funky and dump it in.
Vinegar.
Yeah. So
Vinegar?
A lot of vinegar. Yeah.
Oh,
to feed the
some carbon dosing
bacteria.
with the vinegar.
There's definitely a bacterial / carbon dosing here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's probably why they're getting the nutrients dropping.
Probably.
Yeah. It's interesting though. Yeah, no, I know Ryan Cunningham, I think he was doing it. There's a few different people I've talked to now that are doing it, so
Yeah, Mike Paletta is writing an article, apparently. He's been trying it. A couple of coral guys, Anand and Sani, they've been doing it.
I mean, at the end of the day, different corals eat different things. So if you're like, here's a soup of everything, a little something for everyone, as long as it's not affecting your water quality, I don't see any harm in it.
But you could do that with Phyto and add Benefits and add some coral snow, or add some eggs and add some reef nutrition stuff and shake it up. And that's different than trying to have the bacteria actually feed the coral.
Yeah. Yeah, no, fair. Because if you're carbon dosing your bacteria that's in the food, I mean, you could be also boosting those bacteria populations a bit before it even makes it into the tank.
Yeah.
Which could be. Crazy. I don't know. Interesting.
Can you imagine if you forgot about it and left it on the shelf and you get it out and it's like, bloop. It's like just smacked you.
Well, I've been told it smells pretty nasty as it starts to
Yeah,
melt
you
a
gotta
bit,
keep
but
it. You gotta keep an aerator on it, and then if you keep it in the fridge, you gotta keep it with the cap open or something.
don't dose it when your spouse is home. Open the windows.
I don't know. I don't know how long you're supposed to keep it yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But yeah, no, I don't know. It's interesting.
I'm just gonna find that magic formula and bottle it as a Polo's Reef Juice.
Full of half of the ingredients are aquaforest or zeovit things that people aren't even sure. They think they're probiotics. They're not sure. They think it's an enzyme. They're not sure. I don't. This is all new. The vinegar, I think they figured that out and sold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
and
probably
they throw Benefits and Reefroids in there also.
the vinegar is gonna help not make it get as funky too, but it will also be carbon dosing it at the same time.
But they're also they'll put calcium carbonate in there also with the vinegar, which I'm trying to figure out like how long that lasts before the calcium carbonate breaks down.
Yeah.
But that's basically coral snow.
The acidity of that
That's just a
well.
flocculant. Yeah.
That's all.
So that's a weird one to me because that's basically a flocculant that has zero nutrition value. So that's not feeding your corals.
No, but
Yeah.
it's in some of the oatmeal recipes. That's all I can tell you.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Well,
that's an interesting one.
I don't know. I'll let other people do it for a few more months and see how it goes. I do enough mad scientisting for now.
I'm beginning. I need to sort the humidity out first before we do anything.
Baby
You know
steps.
that rocks carbon works pretty good. You may not ever need ozone. Honestly,
Yeah.
what's the depth of your tank?
2 foot.
You don't need ozone.
No.
I wouldn't do it.
No, it's ridiculous. There's 3 here, and then there's the opus down there. That's just in the box. So, yeah.
I wouldn't do it.
No.
I would want at least 4 feet of water to justify ozone. At least a 4-foot tank. Anything smaller, I don't think you need to go ozone. So you're safe for now.
Like I said,
What are you trying to say, Dev? You're trying to say that Steph hasn't got a big enough tank?
I'm trying to say that
yeah.
the more water you're looking through, the bigger the benefit of ozone.
Yeah.
I'd rather see you get a 3x oversized UV.
Mm-hmm.
That might kill some pathogens instead of
I'm not having issues. So I've got good water clarity. It's just the fishy smell. The fishy smell.
I mean, ozone will work, or will carbon, if you just
Yeah.
change it a little more regularly.
Mm.
Yep. All right, boys. We got to cut her fairly short, but any other things rabbit holes you guys want to dive into?
No.
We got her.
So,
Got her covered.
Yeah.
I think, Steph, aren't you trying to get to the Reeferpalooza in New York in June?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. We're going over. I'm off to Interzoo in Germany, which is going to be pretty cool.
Nice.
So yeah, the year it still feels like the year's only just started, but yeah, trying to get some dates in the diary. So hopefully going to network a bit more and meet a few more people.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I need to get over there this year, I think.
Any of that?
I need to try Interzoo. Get an excuse to go to Germany. Be fun.
Yeah, you have to come over to the Europe one, Dev.
I know.
Have you been to the German one, Andrew?
Which one?
The Interzoo show in Germany. Have you been to that one?
No, but we want to do more RAWs and AZAs and Interzoos, and we will. This year's though were such strange places that I passed. I'm going to pass this year and go next year.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It literally was like the furthest point in the country. Like you went to like the state of Washington and you passed Seattle. You might as well just go straight to Hawaii. That's what it was. Or it
Yeah.
is.
So true. Tracy, smash that like button, hit subscribe. Thanks for the super chat, buddy. Question from Andrew from the chat. Do you make your own fish food? What do you use for fish food, Andrew?
We use a lot of frozen Larry's and P. Mysis and Reef Nutrition cubes and Chunky with this. Yeltsin likes a little bit of everything. And then I do have a chef that will go to the seafood market once a month and chop up salmon with clams, mussels, fish heads, put some nori in there, squid sometimes, and chop.
Yeah.
We put it in Ziplocs and it go in the freezer.
Do you know? It's really weird because my dad phoned me just a week ago going, I've just been to the fishmongers and I'm making my own fish food. And I said, what? I've got calamari, I've got this, I've got that, I've got calamari. What?
Yeah.
But apparently it's good stuff. It's the best way to do it. I think, Nick, you spoke about doing that as well.
Yeah, I advise everyone to make their own fresh food and then a bit of frozen, a bit of pellet and flake in there. It's like the squid, like cephalopods have a high content, natural content of iodine. So if you put cuttlefish, squid, octopus in there, you got natural source of iodine going in. So yeah, I'm a huge advocate of not just buying, the cube frozen from the store. I think mix it up and it's really good.
Vitamins or you set up
B12,
any
vitamin C, B12, vitamin C.
B12 and C you put in there.
Yeah. We just knock that off.
We take sugarless children's vitamins and krill oil.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the only problem with, I know people have this tendency of like, I look after my fish and I feed them really well, and they go to the store and they just buy the frozen cubes, but there's a lot of phosphate in that, and in the food preservative, and also it's like something like 18% protein and 80% moisture. That's a lot of water in those cubes. So yeah, I think fresh is always good.
I had a moment a couple of weeks ago when I was doing everything with the tanks, and I realised we don't really think about what we eat as much as our fish eat. So, how much of X, Y, and Z are we getting? So I had a bit of a moment the other week. Because there's so much to make sure that we get right for the fish, because we're putting them in these boxes which couldn't be further away from where they're from. Certainly in the UK, you guys are a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Well away from that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one for Andrew, because I know, Andrew, you're doing like a lot of research and experimentation on stuff. But it's really hard to find like any recommended daily amounts of nutrition for fish, unless it's a fishery that you try and pattern up for food.
Right, exactly. Or they know how to medicate based on weight of the fish. They don't know whether a tank should have 50% of their diet nor 50% seafood,
right,
or it should be 75-25. They just don't.
Yeah. It's so strange, really, right? That there's no really any information on what's good nutrition for your fish.
Yeah.
I personally think my hunch is for our sodium fish and tanks, we are over proteining them relative to nori and algae. This is my thought. Now, is that the same thing with an angelfish? I have no idea.
Right.
No idea.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, all the research is basically on, feeder fish and stuff, right? Not really aquarium fish. I think that's one of the things. It's food farms that do the research, not us. But,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Variety is the spice of life. I mean, that's my mentality, right? Just mix it up. Certain fish get different nutritions out of certain things. So a bit of a variety is best that we can do at a certain point. Yeah. I don't know how it is for you guys, but the audio's been super choppy the last few minutes for me. I'm not sure if it's like that for everybody, so hopefully not. But no, okay. So I do got to wrap it up because I got to go grab the kid. But I do thank you guys for joining me today. If you haven't seen Andrew's channel, check out Polo Reef. If you haven't seen Stefan's, the Yorkshire Reefer, the Yorkshire Reefer.
Yeah, I like the way you say Yorkshire.
Is that right? Am I probably saying it wrong because I'm not from the UK?
Yorkshire.
Yeah. Nick, you don't really have a YouTube channel. You're slacking, but Aquarium Cabinet Solutions.
I know.
I know.
Nick, let's talk later on, tomorrow or over the weekend on that that box over there.
Yeah, for sure.
But you can show me in the daylight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds good. All right, guys. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. You need to subscribe. Tracy.
Thanks, Devin.
Polar Roof, Niagara Fire Corals. Thank you guys for Super Chat. Appreciate it. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Night. Cheers.
Take care.
Cheers.